Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my playthrough of Dark Souls 2 Scholar for Sin. So, in the previous episode, we defeated the Pursuer, and by doing so we unlocked an entirely new way to get to this location. This being the Lost Bastille, one of those kind of interesting mid-beginning areas, kind of starting to go into the middle of the game a little bit here. But it's kind of interesting that they decided to have this area accessible from two different areas going into this one. And this area is its own specific sort of isolated area. It's not tied to the world in any way. You pretty much get here either by the ship from No Man's Wharf, or you get here by the bird from the Forest of Giants area. Take care of these guys real quick. This area down here can be quite a pain because you have all these dogs that will keep you quite busy while you have all these guys, archers and everything else. And I believe the Pursuer will actually show up, which quite worries me because he is very frequent in this version of the game. He will show up absolutely everywhere. So you do have to be very careful because he will catch you by surprise now and again. Take a quick glug. But nonetheless, I've been rewatching a few of my videos, and I feel like I've been very hard on Dark Souls 2. I feel like a lot of the judgments I was making of the game and a lot of the observations were very poignant and they were very true. But I think I'm painting a picture of the game that's not exactly entirely accurate. I do need to kind of balance it out a little bit with some of the good things of the game, so I'll be discussing that a bit. So, and I'm not entirely sure how many people who are watching this have seen Demon Souls or played Demon Souls. And I would do a playthrough of it, but I don't have the ability to at the moment. But it's a great game. And the feeling I had when I first played the game was, obviously the first thing you notice with any Dark Souls game, the first time you play it, is the difficulty. It's very difficult. I think most people at first were a little put off by it. I don't think I was put off by it. I was a little frustrated at the beginning. But that's what's really nice, is the game builds off of that frustration, whether it's something they did by choice or something that just sort of happened accidentally. But you get so frustrated trying to get through areas, and you die so many times, and you spend so much time trying to study enemy movements, that when you finally do accomplish what you want to, it is so nice. It just makes you feel like you accomplished something. It makes you feel like you've actually put in some hard work into the games. And I feel like most modern games at the moment really just hold your hand as much as possible. I mean, you can play any game. For example, I was playing Destiny recently, and if you die during a story mission, it pretty much sends you right back to where you were. The enemies are gone that you've destroyed, and you pretty much feel like if you die, there's really not any consequence to it. You still go on through the game, and it's really sad. And that's what makes Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and they're all great games because of that. They really build off of that desire to challenge yourself and that desire to improve yourself. Not that playing video games is much of a self-improvement tactic. That's a very debatable subject, but yeah, I think that's one of the first things you'll notice, and I absolutely loved it. But what really got me with Demon Souls specifically, oh jeez, nice job, you klutz, jeez. But anyways, what really got me with Demon Souls was the design of the game, the design of enemies, the design of the architecture and the buildings, and just the map in general was amazing. To this day, I still look back at videos of the game and just the areas in it, and I'm still in awe as to how detailed it is and how cool it is. It gives you this really cool tone of just this dread, and I don't know, it's just really hard to put your finger on. And Dark Souls does that as well. I keep being really apprehensive about a new IP with From Software, because when Dark Souls was announced and it wasn't tied to Demon Souls, I was very upset. And then I played Dark Souls and I completely forgot about me being upset at all after about 5 minutes of playing. I mean, it's pretty much the same game. Very light changes, but nothing too drastic. Yeah, map design absolutely amazing in these games. And that's one of the reasons why I will be hard on Dark Souls 2, because it's not living up to the standard the previous games have brought up as much. And of course, it's still trying to imitate it as much as possible, which is good, in my opinion. Alright, let's make sure I'm good to go for these guys. There's just 2 at the moment. There's going to be a lot more in there. I'm going to go ahead and try to aggro them with my bow and arrow now that I have a few decent ones here. A little cheap, but I mean, it works. you know, if you've gone through these guys enough times, you get to a point where you're just so, oh, come on. Slid down the ledge. That's ridiculous. Alright, I'll be right back. Okay, thought I'd cut myself out moving back up here. Not too much to see. Alright, now to do this right. Not to pat myself on the back, but I feel like a lot of the deaths I've been getting are just really more of environmental deaths. Because I just get so excited to keep moving and, you know, be as flashy as possible when I'm attacking enemies that I don't really pay attention to my surroundings. But hey, that's my fault. Okay, not too bad. And, oh crap, we're gonna need a frigate branch of yore. Okay, so stuck in a little bit of a predicament. I didn't have any frigate branches of yore, so I thought I'd go ahead and farm one, and then in the meantime I will show you the other way to get to the Lost Bastille. So this is a little interesting cutscene here. I'll let you watch it. Yeah, very reminiscent of Dark Souls 1 when you went back to the nest, if anyone has ever done that. Almost pivotal to the game in a way. But there's a bird that will actually take you back to the beginning area, and there'll be an entirely new boss battle, new items, and an item very crucial to going into an entirely new area that many people would miss. And I'm really happy that I found that in Dark Souls 1. I do really like my snow levels in games. I do have to admit that. When I played that specific level, I was absolutely thrilled. It was an amazingly designed level. It was really cool. You were in an entirely, like, almost different realm, and it was okay that you went in an entirely different area that wasn't tied to the rest of the game, because Dark Souls 1 never really did it. If they did it at all, it was very infrequent. And I feel like just that moderation that Dark Souls 1 had in comparison to the 2 is very needing. But so you can see we're in the same area, just a different route, but there's some items here to get, so I'll go over and get some. I'll leave them be for the moment. Let's see what we have over here. There's so many items in this game, it's so hard to remember where everything is. I always mistake one item for the item in the next area. Alright, one cool thing to show you is I'll just knock this over. And all those wolves are taken care of. Sweet. Okay, down we go. Let me make sure there's no enemies down here. But nonetheless, I feel like I didn't really even notice a lot of the issues they have with Dark Souls 2 as much when I first started the game. It's mainly the second playthrough, and a little bit beyond that. I don't think there's an illusionary wall here. Oh! One thing they did add is these little guys that are hidden, and they give you these soft and silky stones, which is an interesting name. But there's a NPC in the beginning area you can give those to, and they'll give you kind of a randomly generated item, which is always cool. A little bit more useful than some of the other, gimmicks, especially Dark Souls 1. You would give the birds like a stone or whatever else they were asking for, and you never really got too much out of it. Usually just be a healing item, and you kind of had to go back to the original area and do a lot of movement to see what you got. So didn't feel as worth it. So maybe that's one thing Dark Souls 2 did do better than the first one. I would take on the Pursuer right now, but God, this guy is so difficult. I prefer a little bit more of an area where I can get a little bit more defense behind areas where I can, heal up, because he is definitely a 1 or 2 heal boss. And I mean, he still has the health and the attack of a boss, and he's showing up in your game, which is cool. I mean, that's the Metroidvania aspect of the game, but I think it would be a little bit more momentous if he did it later. Just, kind of show a way where he's continuously following you, and he kind of meets up with you, and the game could make a little bit more bigger of a deal about it than him just kind of showing up and just being there. But nonetheless, based off of frustration than anything else, more or less, this would be a minor portion of it. But bad game design, it definitely can be a huge frustrator for many people playing games, and even just making games that are just difficult for lack of reason. I specifically remember I played Bound by Flame, which wasn't a very well played game, which really isn't really worth playing. The game had intensely crazy difficulty. I was on normal mode, and I just was not progressing at all. And it wasn't because of lack of skill or anything else. It was because enemies had health bars that lasted for days. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, to be attacking just a basic enemy for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and you'd be sitting there and going, why am I doing this? You know, you don't feel like you're being challenged. You just feel like you're grinding away, and that's a huge issue with many games nowadays. You know, some people will mistake that for, you know, game difficulty. I think it's just poor game programming. But nonetheless, so Dark Souls, of course, does that very well. You know, Skull of the First Sin is starting to become really well known for being a pretty difficult Dark Souls game. I mean, they move characters around and they have things set up just right, so it's much more difficult than Dark Souls 2. And I mean, there's just times where you just get completely stuck. And I mean, a little bit of it's frustration because they will just, you know, rather than making enemies have new attack patterns, which a few of them do, they pretty much more or less just put more enemies in an area, or more difficult to area enemies in an area that it typically wouldn't be, which is okay. I mean, if I were to spend the day sitting in a chair thinking about how to do it better, I'm sure I could come up with something. So, but regardless, so we have a boss battle coming up here pretty soon, and I'm really hesitant about it. It's a pain. So we have 3 enemies, and I'm trying to remember the name at the moment, but we have 3 enemies to fight at once, so 3 bosses more or less, and they are a pain, and they are very quick, which quick enemies in large quantities are absolutely impossible in this game. I mean, you really genuinely have to keep a really good distance and just keep an eye out for some good moments. So notice that note there says treasure, and it's a fall to your death. That's one thing a lot of people tend to do in this game, is they put notes down that are misleading, telling you to jump. And unfortunately, I doubt very, very many people would admit it, but I think we've all fallen for it at some point. I definitely have. Even in areas where I knew I would die, it's just, I don't know, sometimes you think, oh, well, you know, I don't know, you just hope the best of people, I suppose. I just couldn't see that being very entertaining, just sit there and write out an entire note just to screw over a few people. Very troll-oriented, I guess, but alright. I'm glad that we have this hide sword now. One of my favorite weapons. Works so well. Oh, nice. So we are going to be summoning this guy here. I would like to do a playthrough without summons, but this boss battles is just, it's 3 guys at once. It's kind of a pain. I don't want you guys to get bored watching me try over and over again. I mean, I could potentially get it in one hit. In the last few times I've gone against him, I've done it in the first try, but it's just a long boss battle, so I thought, let's add in another guy here. So we're gonna have me and 2 other guys, and there's 3 bosses, so I mean, I hesitant to say it's not equal. Ned Flanders seems to agree as well. I don't know, I feel like, oddly enough, I feel like I would get more into the idea that this is Ned Flanders, but I'm thinking more of him, more of like an Englishman now. You know, greeting every enemy. Good sir, we will fight a battle of the gentlemen, and I will be the victor. But anyways, so yeah, the key with this boss battle, so you're going to start off in this area with just this first guy here. And let's see here. So these are the sentinels. I thought I remembered them being something. When you think sentinel, you usually think, you know, larger enemy, but so yeah, these guys are a really big pain. So there'll be 3 of these guys, and the other 2 guys will aggro. Once you get that guy's health pretty low, so you can see they're already moving around down there, and they're getting ready to jump up here. Come on, guys, get pumped. I'm getting to the point where if I notice I have a moment to do a gesture, I feel like I should do it. To also make the game a little bit more challenging as well. So, but anyways, you can see we have 2 more enemies down here now. So, I think we should be able to handle, obviously, with, you know, 2 summonings, but the very interesting boss battle. It's really, really not fun when you're on your own. I remember this was one of the first bosses I actually got stuck with on my first playthrough. I think it took me 3 tries, if I remember right. But it takes such a decent amount of time to get here, and there's so many enemies to slug through, and there's so many corridors, so you can't exactly run past enemies. You have to fight through them every single time, and it's a very debatable subject as to whether or not that's good challenge or it's on the line of frustration. I mean, you could definitely put challenge and frustration in a bar and kind of level the game out based on that. I feel like Dark Souls goes more off challenge and frustration, but I do see Dark Souls 2 going into more frustration than Dark Souls 1 and even Demon Souls and even Bloodborne at that. I feel like at Bloodborne, when I played through recently, it was my first playthrough, I never felt like there was a moment where I was really frustrated. I feel like there was moments where I felt really challenged and I felt like I needed to improve on what I was doing, but Dark Souls 2, definitely a little bit of frustration now and again. And so this is an actual person, so I'll give him some proper gestures here before he goes away. It's always nice to thank the hand that feeds you. Alright. Good, we're making friends today as well. So, I'm not going to quite cut it off here. There's a lot of secret passages in this area I'd like to show off first, and that'll make for sorry to say, probably a boring beginning of a video, so we'll just go through here real quick. I'll try to make sure my commentary compensates for it. Let's see. There's several in here. There's at least 5. I know that. Let me just open all these before I go through them individually. Yeah, you see they're everywhere. And it's so weird because hidden doors are so scattered throughout the game that you almost get to a point where you just stop looking for them because you get so frustrated in going up to all the walls. And then areas like this happen where they're everywhere. It just makes no sense. It's really confusing. Really jarring, and I really wish that they kept the, hitting the wall with your sword gimmick on opening doors from the previous game. I mean, it's nice that you don't have to deteriorate your weapon by doing that, but, I mean, you do have to kind of even it out a bit. And I feel like even just weapon deterioration off of hitting walls doesn't happen enough to make a gameplay gimmick out of it. So I'm not entirely sure why I understand they decided to do that as a gameplay mechanic. It's very weird that they would just do that as a change. I don't know who thought of it, but I don't know. But nonetheless, guys, I think I will call it quits for today. I will be seeing you shortly in the next episode. Feel free to check out my other ones if you haven't seen them. But regardless, guys, I will see you next time, and take it easy.